Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown of the elite skirmish forces. On the left hand side, we have the mighty Killeruno of Extreme Meme Team facing off against the legendary Ronin of the same clan. So it looks like we have a bit of an internal clan affair here, and these guys are going to be scrapping it out on the Battle of the Pointy Ears. And here we are on Tower of Hoeth. So it looks like the High Elves trying to push back a Wood Elf insurgents into their land, and leading their forces is indeed going to be the mighty Shadowkin himself, Aleph and Nar. Really good in this matchup. He can snipe those squishy elven characters, and he's going to be coming in equipped with the basic moon bow. Can do some really nice burst damage to tightly packed formations, as well as doing some okay damage to characters as well. In the front vanguard here, we do have triple Shadow Walkers. Now, you can only get these guys if you are playing Nagarythe. Normal High Elves do not have access to them, and they're basically Way Watchers without the armor piercing, but they do come in with a lovely poison, which gives them a little bit more flavor in certain matchups. For the main battle line, it is going to be cheap and cheerful shielded spearmen. Of course, spearmen very good in this matchup. And it looks like we have Silver and Guard dotted just behind, who are fantastic because of that magic resistance. These guys kind of 30% magic resistance, which means Dryads, Treek, and other such units basically don't touch them whatsoever, while the spearmen do take all the arrows on their mighty shields. In the back here, we do have one unit of Silver Helms, nice medium range shock cavalry. And on the left-hand side, it looks like we have some more Silver Helms, and equally on the right. So triple Silver Helms for this force. In the middle central pocket here, we do have a Mage of Fire coming with Burning Head and Flaming Sword of Rune. And she's going to be looking rather regal in that red colour scheme on top of a mighty Elvish steed. And that's it for the High Elf forces. Rather basic and simple stuff, but should be some good fun. Now, for the force of the Wood Elves, we have triple Way Watchers in the front line. Looks like Ronin is going to be going a little bit more old school. Before the DLC, you saw triple Way Watchers an absolute ton. For me, they seem to miss way more now, but I'm not sure if that's just bad luck from me, rather than their stats actually being changed that much. They did lose a little bit of accuracy. And in the forces, in classic Wood Elf style, shall be a Glade Lady on a steed, coming in with the Prey of Enough Raymer, as well as Arrows of Kurnos. For the main battle line, it is going to be Eternal Guard, although they are mixing with a couple of units of Dryads as well, or in fact just a single one. Oh no, it looks like we've got the two, as well as a nice dotted, spread out units of Eternal Guard. We also have triple Wild Riders, one of the OGs in the Wood Elf roster. The Great Stag Knights certainly have come into play a lot more recently. People love picking them, but there's something special about the Wild Riders, the fastest, most hard-hitting, yet fragile light cavalry in the entire game. And it looks like he does not have a spellcaster, which is very surprising. Oh no, it looks like they are going to be hidden in the trees. It's always good to bring a spellcaster, of course. Spellslinger of Life with Earthblood, so just going to be trying to heal up the Way Watchers, allowing them to carry the day. But we're going to have to see how this skirmish phase does fare, as both these guys do charge out to meet one another. Shadow Warriors have now been spotted and are revealed, and in comes a big volley from both sides. Let's see who fares better. Oh, those Way Watchers get absolutely nuked. So does one unit of Shadow Walkers, but those Way Watchers are already starting to run for the hills, though they do have that life mage to try and top them up. And good focus fire. All three Shadow Walkers focus firing down one unit of Way Watchers at a time, which is certainly the best way to go. Aleph and Nar is starting to pick off Wild Rider models as well. There was a good use early on, though, of the Arrows of Kurnos. So if your opponent doesn't have any artillery pieces, simply start sniping out their casters, and that's just what Ronin did. Another volley is coming in now from the Way Watchers, catching those Shadow Walkers, doing some really nice damage. These guys down to just 23 models, but they've taken an absolute pounding in return. A Moonbow shot does Kobe in, aiming for that Spellslinger, but lovely duking back and forth here by Ronin. Going to allow that Moonbow to pretty much be a complete and utter waste, although Aleph Knight is going to continue to focus down the Spellslinger, who's currently trying to hide amongst the trees. Way Watchers continue to fire in, now starting to trade a little bit more effectively, trying to whittle down the Shadow Walkers, not doing too much damage on that volley. Shadow Walkers are retaliating now, focus firing down this one unit once more, doing some really nice damage. You can see the ground is littered with Way Watcher dead, something you never want to see if you are a Wood Elf fan. Looks like the High Elves are going to be taking the initiative as well, starting to push up their main force before deciding, you know what, this skirmish phase isn't going too bad for us. We're actually going to fall back slightly a little bit more up the hill to try and take the high ground, try and drag the Wood Elves and pull them into position. It looks like the Wood Elf forces are indeed going to be moving up, realising that they're not going to be winning this long skirmish game, mainly because Aleph and Nar can simply out-trade the Glade Lord, or Glade Lady I should say, as well as that Spellslinger at long range. Arrows of Kurnos does come in, though, that Mage of Fire down to about half health without casting a single spell yet, but the Wood Elf forces are now starting to approach. Wild Riders bounding across the open plains to try and close the distance. Shadow Walkers doing some really nice work there. Eternal Guard taking a bit of a pounding at this point, but they are shielded, so not going to mind too much. Those mighty shields are raised, and they won't be taking a huge amount of damage. Looks like Alphanar still trying to focus on the Glade Lady, who's duking back and forth. 1 or 2 stray arrows does catch her, though, and she's not very well armoured, so you don't need the AP on them. And a big shot from Alphanar shoots down and scares the living crap out of her horse. She decides to fall back, and it looks like the Shadow Walkers are doing the same, though, trying to get behind the defensive position of these spearmen. Silverhelms are starting to ride forward. They don't have too much to fear in this build, apart from fear itself, and, of course, the Way Watchers. And Way Watchers, though, are a big threat to Silverhelms. If they get netted, they'll get absolutely deleted. I know the temptation to come in and do some big fat cycle charging in the front line can be a lot, but you need to be a bit more restrained, and it looks like that's just what he's going to be doing here. Alphanar just vibing in the middle at this point, has taken some damage from the Glade Lady, but nothing too crazy. Way Watchers, though, do get a huge volley off on him. Prevanaf Rainer is down, and the Shadow King needs to find the shadows a little bit better here. Taking huge amounts of damage at this point. He does shoot a Moonbow in retaliation, doing big burst damage to the Spellstone of Life, but she's not going to care too much if Alphanar does indeed go down. It looks like that prey does drop off just in time before another volley comes in, and he's going to trot backwards, and pretty much every single shot misses him there, and somehow Alphanar lives to fight another day. But now the Shadow Walkers have come to his aid, starting to push up and going to be unleashing hell upon the Way Watchers if they got the opportunity, and it looks like that's just what they're going to try to do, although they have taken a few shots on the approach. Way Watchers now going to be dragging back, and it's pretty similar play by both players, trying to pull the enemy into the spear line, hide behind them, and get to a little bit of safety. Alphanar is incredibly weak at this point. Arrows of Connors does go into him as well, sliding him on the ground onto his butt. Alphanar down to just 500 health, is certainly needing to retreat as far away from the battlefield as possible, as that Glade Lady can simply sit on him all day, firing shots in until he is finished. So really long early phase so far by both of these players. Shadow Walkers are now unleashing shots upon the Wild Riders, which is some good value if you can damage them. It looks like Silverhelms were tempted to go in for a charge, but lovely play by Ronan, moving up those Eternal Guard to pressure them away as well. Glade Lady trying to get over Eagle, really wants to finish off Alphanar, who has disgustingly long range, so he can still sit all the way back here and contribute to the battle, where she needs to get a little bit closer. But as soon as she does poke in, it looks like the Spearmen will push her away. Way Watchers do finally manage to overcome one unit of Shadow Walkers, forcing those guys off the field, and perhaps Ronan will now take this opportunity to get really aggressive with one of the skirmish core units for this high force off the field. Eternal Guard are starting to push up, and it looks like we have a fat Earthblood catching all 3 units of Way Watchers. It won't heal them up massively, though, they have lost quite a few models, but every little bit does help. They need to push forward and start assassinating some of these characters, but there's a lot of Spearmen and a lot of Silver and Guards to bite through so far. Still for the Wood Elves, and their troops aren't going to be fantastic at it, apart from cycle charging from the Wild Riders, which is something Ronan is very good at as well. It looks like the Spearmen are currently getting dotted down by some shots, although perhaps they are going after the Shadow Walkers, which is a far better idea, trying to break off that unit of 8 troops, although they should be wavering and falling apart relatively soon. Dryades have launched themselves into combat, trying to catch on the Spearmen. It looks like good play by Killaruna, going to pull back the Spearmen and drag these Dryades into the Silver and Guard, and Dryades are going to have a far worse time. Glorious play, and Silverhelms crash into the rear. All of a sudden, these Dryades are having a very, very bad day indeed. Beautiful micro there from the High Elf forces. Way Watchers are now launching shots in. Looks like they are going after the Silverhelms, which isn't a bad target whatsoever. They need to be very careful on their ammo consumption, though. They're needed to take down those Silver Guard in the late game. Silverhelms getting absolutely nuked at this point. Wild Riders are in there doing a fabulous job putting these guys in place. And on the charge, Wild Riders are ferocious beasts indeed. It looks like they are able to drive back the Silverhelms, although the Silver and Guard reserve has been pushed forward. Big Fat Burning Head does go down the line, roasting friend and foe alike, but mainly catching Eternal Guard and Dryads. So really nice cast there from the Fire Caster. Wild Riders are having to pull back, which is very wise. Double Silver Helms will certainly overcome Wild Riders, especially when saturated on with Silver and Guard and Spearmen. Looks like Eternal Guard are being trying to force forward to help protect the forces. More Eternal Guard have darted into the back line. Shadow Walkers aren't the worst melee troops, but they don't want to be fighting Elvish infantry. So Silverhelms crashing in here. Thunderous charge into the Eternal Guard. Should be able to pin them in place for a while, allow the Shadow Walkers to regain their breath a little bit before launching shots in. Looks like Wild Riders have also darted into the back lines, and the battle has become very, very messy now as more Wild Riders pour through the gaps in this high elf formation. Way Watchers, though, have stopped shooting. They need to continue to rain down fire on key targets. In the centre here, the Silver Guard held in really well, taking pretty much no damage from the Dryads. Spearmen, though, have taken a bit of a pound, and it looks like some Eternal Guard may be able to get a lovely surround here, which would be really glorious stuff. Get that rear attack going into the Silver Guard to try and break them off. And in the back lines, though, Wild Riders have taken huge damage, vibing too long with some Spearmen, and a big Fat Burning Head does come down the line, roasting more of that Wood Elf infantry. And the infantry is really key here, because if you just have Way Watchers left, it doesn't matter, because they're simply going to run out of ammunition up against cheap and cheerful spearmen, Silver Guard, and so forth. A lovely brave enough Raymer does go down on some silver helms. They're going to be finished off by Eternal Guard and a couple of volleys from Way Watchers launching in, but it looks like they are done for at this point and shattered off the field. And only one unit of Shadow Walkers does remain, hiding in the back, well, and a unit of 8, but they're kind of attached at this point. Eternal Guard have managed to force their way through the central pocket, forcing away the Silver Helms who have had to dart back. And in the distance, we have a fight of the cavalry as Wild Riders do engage Silver Helms. Elvish Blade hits Elvish Blade. It looks like we are going to be seeing an Earthblood come down though, which will certainly help out. Oh no! Is it a Flaming Sword instead? It is indeed a Flaming Sword, and the Silver Helms are going to be able to slaughter these Wild Riders now. The Great Stag Cavalry, or the original Stag Cavalry I should say, have been dealt a final blow. Silver Helms going to be able to drive them away from the battlefield, and look who it is, Alethnar in the distance, still launching shots in, still trying to compete in the battle despite the fact he's down to a meager 150 health. Shadow Walkers in the centre as well, not doing terribly badly. It looks like the High Elves have managed to regain their composure in the centre of the battle. Silver Guard being absolute linebackers here, defending rather well. Way Watchers are now being forced back, driven away by Spearmen. We have Eternal Guard trying to intercept, but these Way Watchers, I think they're going to have a tough time. They're probably going to start to run out of ammunition, and it looks like the balance of power is starting to reflect that as well. Glade Lady darts over to this flank. Looks like she's trying to drive back some Silver Helms who are trying to get into that juicy underbelly of the Wood Elf build, the Way Watchers. And now she can also help finish off this second unit, who is kindly showing the Wild Riders the way off the battlefield. At least they're going back into the trees, back to their home there. It looks like the Major Fire is still just about alive, looking very beat up at this point, and that's one of the ways the Wood Elves can get back in this game. If this Glade Lady comes over here, assassinates the Major Fire, assassinates Alethnar, it can certainly be a good day, as it looks like the Shadow Walkers are at this moment out of ammunition. They will be dual-wielding their blades, though, charging into combat up against the beleaguered Eternal Guard, who are currently fighting 2-1 already, now fighting 3-1. They won't hold much longer, despite, you know, they should be holding for an eternity, you would hope by their names, but alas, it is not so. Over here, Silver Guard pretty much full health, despite the fact they've already got 39 kills, driving the Dryads back to the forest from whence they came, and now it's looking very promising for the forces of the High Elves. But Ronan is not going down without a fight. The Glade Lady has darted her mighty steed over here, searching for Alethnar, and he has been shattered by her mere presence. I do not blame him. One more shot and he is out of it, and now she's going to be hunting down that Major Fire wherever she goes, which is obviously the right thing to do. And the Mage does take an arrow up the bum, not something she was looking forward to this morning, down to just 420 health, but there's so many Spearmen left alive at this moment. A huge contingent of Spears, Silver Guard, Shadow Walkers are going to be able to finish off the Eternal Guard in the centre here. In the distance, we can see Way Watchers not being on fire at will mode, which is really good. Oh, just like I said, they do actually unleash a shot, so perhaps they're trying to get rid of these Spearmen, but that's just wasting ammunition on troops that you maybe could surround in combat late game. They need to be focusing down the more elite warriors, but they're just being pushed into the corner here, surrounded by Shadow Walkers, as well as Spearmen, although Shadow Walkers take a huge volley to the face. Arrows, literally, oh, an arrow in each eye. That's some deadly Way Watcher accuracy. Even on the run, they're master archers at the end of the day. Shadow Walkers are fleeing here and are routing. Again, I do not blame them. They've seen a ton of their friends get killed, but there are simply too many High Elf forces left alive. Dryads have been shattered in the distance, and I think we're going to fast forward this a little bit now, as the Glade Lady simply is going to be hiding in the trees, hunting down that mage wherever she goes. And the Way Watchers do manage to break the Spearmen, though, which is a really nice catch by them. Should be able to escort them off the field, waste these Shadow Walkers as well, just simply one-on-one. Probably best just to hop into combat, but they actually do unleash a shot first. But their ammunition is incredibly dry at this point. High Elves simply need to pull together and just sit on this high ground or sit in the forest. It doesn't really matter. And it looks like the Glade Lady trying to do some cycle charging on these Spearmen, who are of course quite weak, trying to break their morale by cycle charging, but there's just legion upon legion of Spearmen coming over to chase her down. She's going to be fleeing, trying to soak up all the juice, all the value possible from these Way Watchers, who've done a fantastic job so far, despite that really early shock damage they took from the Shadow Walkers. I'm very interested to see who got the most value. They're going to be unleashing some shots into the Silver Guard, not a bad target whatsoever, firing into their rear. But yeah, it's going down rather badly here, as the Glade Lady, completely surrounded by spears, is simply going to get poked and stabbed to death. Looks like she even took a couple of arrows as well from her own Way Watchers, who are trying to do a little bit of Overwatch fire. And that is indeed going to be game. Very well played to these two true champions. A Pyrrhic victory for sure, not too much left, but well played to Killaruno and Ronan. And it was a real good masterclass of the skirmish, elite skirmishers here, the Way Watchers and the Shadow Walkers. Before we do a little breakdown of damage value and damage dealt, hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. We drop new stuff every single day. Also going to be trying a rather exciting new type of video where we do like tactics, what was I going to call it, like 60 seconds tactics or something along those lines, where I try and explain a tactic in 60 seconds for you guys, just for some of the newer players trying to learn 1 or 2 tricks and all that good stuff. Yeah, anyway, on to the glorious battle. So, Ronan did rather well, I think, despite the fact it's a real rough matchup in general, I think, for the Wood Elves. It's got far better since their DLC, but it looks like he was going old school, not bringing any DLC units, going right back to basics, which is the triple Waywatchers. And the Glade Lady did a fantastic job, good nets at the right times as well to hunt down Silver Helms, and if he'd managed to push off Alefnat at the very start, maybe the battle would have swung in his favour. Now, the Glade Lady, 5,800 damage dealt, 1,800 damage value is pretty impressive stuff. Unfortunately, the Spell Center, of course, isn't going to get any value. She's just there to heal. And the Eternal Guard really did struggle in the front line, simply outclassed by Silver Guard. Particularly these Dryads. Just no value. 220 on this one, 130 here. Really unfortunate for his infantry to come up against those Silver Guard, but it is to be expected. Of course, they are kind of a known unit that the High Elves like to bring. Waywatchers did a really good job, triple Waywatchers here, and let's see their value. So 1,600 on this unit, and then we have 1,400, 1,000. So not pretty good stuff overall, but not insane value, which we're used to the Waywatchers getting, so a lot more humble by them, although these two in particular did rather well compared to this other unit here. And the Wild Riders did suffer again, just so many spears, so many arrows, it wasn't really going to be their day at all. But despite that, despite the build that he had here in this matchup, which he got kind of counterpicked quite hard with the forces on display, I think he did a good job to try and drag the game as much as possible to his side. As for Kilaruno, Alefnat did 1,300 damage value and 5.5k damage dealt, despite the fact he took so much damage from the off. And that's one of the bonuses of Alefnat, is he's got disgustingly long range. Yes, he still needs some improvements. Stalk, I think, would make him a little bit too powerful, but just give him some more ammunition and he'd be absolutely fine. But still did a good job throughout the battle. The Mage of Fire did some really nice burning heads along the lines of the Eternal Guard, and that's what the High Elves needed to do to win, was just clear out the chaff, because if they could do that, then the archers simply have far too many targets to try and whittle down, and the cavalry is not going to be able to cycle charge this many spearmen to death. All the spearmen just holding the line for an insane amount of time. Silver Guard basically untouched in comparison to the enemy, and getting some pretty decent damage value and damage dealt across the board. However, if we have a little look at these Shadow Walkers now, we see 1,800 damage value on this unit, and 100 kills is insane, 9k damage dealt. Over here, 1.5k damage value, and on the last one, 700. So 2 of them may have been able to out-trade the Waywatchers for the most part. The other one strung a little bit, and we saw that one get blitzed down rather early. But really good focus fire from the Shadow Walkers. It's definitely a way to go, is focus on one unit, kill it, then focus on the next one. It's the best way to burst them down as quickly as possible. Silver Helms did a decent job, not crazy damage value across the board. We can see 990 here, 700, 300, but they pinned in the enemy, kept the Wild Riders busy, which allowed the Shadow Warriors, as well as the Spearmen, to slowly drag them through the mud. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed. Until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.